So I'm down in downtown Tirana, Albania. Thought I'd explore the area and kind of do a video about why in the world would I move to Albania in the middle of a pandemic. So let's go explore, have a conversation. Who knows, it might be fun. The road that I'm at, you won't believe this, is right here in the middle of downtown Albania. And the name of the road is literally George W. Bush Road, George W. Bush. You think I'm lying to you, but I'm gonna show you. See, I told you. Apparently, our great former president is some sort of national hero here in Albania. Yeah, this is like a major street. It's right in front of where the Capitol Center Square area is. Going right in front of a major mall here called Tani. It's like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Looks like an 8-level mall. Not exactly what you would see in the United States. It reminds me more of the malls that I would see in Southeast Asia. I'll get up here and show you a picture of it. You can hear me over all the traffic. So, back to the topic. The main reasons that I was wanting to leave the United States really aren't relevant to this video. It would take one all unto itself. Suffice it to say that 2020 sucked, to put it mildly. And again, I'll go into that in some other video if anybody's ever interested. But the reasoning behind Albania, a lot of it came down to the pandemic itself. And a lot of it came down to passport issues. Cross this road without getting squished. They're trying hard. But sometimes you gotta ask for forgiveness rather than permission and just go. So, I'm married, and my wife does not have an American passport. Her passport is from the Philippines. My passport is from the United States. Our son has dual citizens, so he has a passport from both countries. And for some strange reason, when I travel around the world and I leave home, my wife likes to continue to live with me. I think she's crazy, but apparently I have to take her with me. So one of the considerations in countries to where we're traveling to is, where can I go visa-free? Where can she go visa-free? You can always apply for visas in a normal year outside of a pandemic, but they're generally a pain in the butt. You usually have to do it from a country you have residency in or your home country. So we really tried to look for countries we could go to that were visa-free. This is a really cool little park here. Huh. We'll see what we can find. Starting to lose the light, but I'll show you this because it's really kind of neat. So some guy named Alexis Buddha, as well as some other people in this park, got statues all to them. Really kind of amazes me all the green spaces that I see here in Tirana. And like, you walk 10 feet and you come into so much history. Like, look at this. Okay. that's like ruins from Justinian's fortress. They call it Justinian's castle. But so basically the emperor had a walled city built here back, I think it was like, is it 300 or 400 AD, something like that. I'm trying to remember when Justinian was, but back in the late antiquity. And so you're just walking around the city and you run into those things. But back to the passport issue. So Albania was a place that I can come as an American, my son can come as an American, my daughter can come as an American for up to a year, which is a very, very generous visa-free policy. So I can stay for a year without having to get a visa, without having to exit the country. If I want to exit the country, I can go and I can hop back in at any time. Now, with my wife's passport, she can't do that with the Philippines. They do not have visa-free access travel to Albania, but she is a U.S. permanent resident, and we do have intentions, obviously, to go back. So with that, we were leaving for a year, got permission. She could come to Albania for 90 days visa-free. She has to exit. She doesn't get the full year that an American citizen does, but as a resident there, she does get that 90 days. So it was a place that we could go. So the passport issue was one reason. There was a limited number of countries that were open at the time that we were leaving the United States that would allow both of our passports to go in, not just visa-free, but for a more extended period of time, because once we got to the first destination, we really did want to settle in, kind of get our sea legs as far as traveling goes. I had done this in the past, but my wife had not. So I've seen squirrels, but no, seriously, there's this really cool like mosque that's just rising out of the background. So when you're in this capital city, you just run into all kinds of neat things on there. So back to the visa issues. So the other thing about Albania was during the pandemic, we were looking for places that were open. We're all fully vaccinated, so we're not worried about getting the coof. And Albania had no entry restrictions on there. You didn't have to come in, you didn't have to quarantine, you didn't have to buy some expensive pass at a hotel where you would be stuck on your vacation for 14 days. They did have, you didn't even have to take a test to get into the country. So that was one really great thing about it. So we had originally planned on going to Mexico as our first destination. And we got closer and closer to our date of departure. And the situation down in Mexico, because of the elections, things like that, just started getting much more violent, especially around the Riviera area where we had planned on going to. In addition to that, we started looking at flights and taking flights from Mexico directly to Eastern Europe. The prices were going up. They had doubled literally in a couple of weeks. And the first place we had planned on going in Europe was to Serbia, to Belgrade specifically. But they had changed their policies at the last minute, and we're going to require testing to get into the country. And to get a test in Mexico is going to be $100 a piece for the PCR test. And that was going to add to the cost. I mean, if you got 4 people going, there's an additional $400 every time you got to skip a border. So we decided on Albania and to leave there directly from the United States. And the funny thing was, even though Albania did not require us to do anything as far as getting any tests or having anything to do with the COVID, what they did require, or what was required, was the airline that we were traveling on, which was Lufthansa, which is a German national carrier. They required, because of German law, that you had to get a test 48 hours before you got on the airplane. So we ended up having to do that anyway in the United States. which was sort of silly since we were already vaccinated. So we were vaccinated, we had to get the COVID tests, and then we had to wear masks, a specific kind of mask, not just any mask, on their silly little flights. But we obeyed the rules and we did it, and we got to Albania. The last issue about Albania, two reasons that we decided to move here. And one of them, besides the freedom during the pandemic, and also dealing with the previous reasons I talked about, is that there was all this history. Like I say, you travel a couple of, you walk around the block here and you bump into something, you know, whether it be from the communist era, whether it be back from Roman times, whether it be back from the Ottoman Empire, or even something more recent. But there's so much to see here, and so many things that I'd always wanted to travel here to see what it looked like. We are really losing the light. The sun's going down quick. And then the final reason was the cost of living here is just so reasonable. You really are able to exercise geo arbitrage, which is earning in American dollars at home. I work remotely, plus I have businesses, so I'm earning in US dollars, but I'm spending in Albanian lek, and the cost of living is just incredibly cheap. I mean, it's almost in some cases the Southeast Asian prices, but in Europe. So busy intersection here. Guess we'll just follow so we don't get, you might get to see Dr. Why I squashed like a grape. He wanted to. He revved it on up. So those are the main reasons, outside of the reasons for leaving the United States to begin with, that we ended up in Albania in 2021 in the middle of a pandemic. And much of that is just because of the policies of this country. And up till now, a lot of Europe, Eastern Europe, Serbia and Montenegro and Croatia, they had kept their borders open, they had stopped doing the policies, but Albania's ended up being the last man standing on there. Them and basically Mexico are the only ones that continued to keep some sense of normalcy in this insane year. So that's it. That's all the reasons that I had. Hope that was informative in some way. It at least tells you what was going through my crazy mind traveling all over the world in the middle of a worldwide pandemic. We'll catch you in the next video. Thanks.